Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm sitting here with Team Fusion Simulations, and I've got Peter Jenkins, PR marketing guru for Team Fusion, and Mike Kirby, the president of Team Fusion Simulations. What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Not too bad.
Hey, Rod.
Awesome.
Doing good,
So
man.
so let's start off a little bit and let's talk about you guys. Introduce yourselves, who you are, where you're from, and what is your role in Team Fusion Simulations.
I might as well start this. Although theoretically I'm the president of Team Fusion, we are much more of a cooperative style organization. And although I'm normally the lead guy, we do operate on a consensus basis. Obviously, we have to deal with the realities of legalities and corporate structures and so on. But we're at our core a group of enthusiasts who have kind of gotten access to the source code thanks to the generosity of 1C games, and they've allowed us to indulge our particular fetish or our particular focus and play around with this game and develop it. So uh, we're at our core, we're a group of enthusiasts.
Awesome. And Pete?
Peter Jenkins. I'm the marketing and PR person for Team Fusion Simulations. I've been doing that now for about the last 16 months. So my role is to coordinate all our social medias. So for those who go, who am I on my online name? It's Pattle, Pattle. And I've been doing majority of the videos that anyone has seen since about May, June last year as well, which has been great. It's been a huge learning curve for us. I think what Mike certainly didn't mention in his is that Team Fusion, as a group of guys, we are from everywhere around the world, and Mike's done a great job in getting the team to the point where we've released Desert Wings TOBRUK. Hardly any of us have ever met any of the other members, and it's a very 21st century game development that we've been able to put this together, and no one's been in the same room at the same time.
That's really funny how that works, because the funny thing is, like, that's how I was doing stuff back in the late 90s even. I met a kid that was online in British Columbia, and we came up with this online magazine, and like we had never met for like a year or two. And then yeah, it's pretty cool that things can work out that way, and you've never even met these people, but you accomplish great things. you know
Yeah, absolutely.
um, how did Team Fusion Simulations come about?
Okay, so we started, as I say, from a group of enthusiasts, and this group was created in the aftermath of the cancellation of support for the original Cliffs of Dover game. The original Cliffs of Dover game was an evolution from IL-2 1946, and there were great hopes for it. Unfortunately, the game, as it was released, had serious bugs, serious issues, problems, and 1C made a decision that it was too difficult for them to fix these problems, and that it was better to move on to another game engine. We believed that there was potential in this game, and we wanted to continue development. So we formed a group that coalesced around the ATAG Air Tactical and Combat Group, and we started the process of improving the game. Probably the biggest credit should go to a guy who's basically anonymous, but whose community nickname was Colander. He had the technical knowledge and skills to lead the programming process and to compile the mods. I was the project coordinator from the beginning and helped set overall goals, as well as I focus on developing the flight and damage modeling. And we brought in specialists and people who have interest in any number of the other areas, whether that be graphics, 3D modeling, sound, etc., to complement us. We now have a group of approximately 30 to 35 people. It varies at different times, and um, we have developed now what I think is professional level skills from being basically amateurs at the start.
That sounds pretty interesting. Um, so basically, and for a timeline for the viewers, so a little bit of history about IL-2 is what IL-2 was somewhere around 2001, and it was IL-2 Sturmovik, and then a bunch of expansions, became IL-2 1946, and then Cliffs of Dover is somehow or another part of the 1946 evolution.
Yeah, it inherited a lot of the code. It inherited a lot of the code from IL-2 1946, and also improved and made it more complex and more detailed. So many of the things were that were very successful, like the net code, which allowed 100 plus players online at a time, were left relatively untouched. Other things in the area of flight modeling, engine modeling, that kind of thing it developed quite a bit further. The graphics were improved considerably. It was state of the art at the time when it came out. So it was an evolution. It was not a smooth evolution. There are a lot of rocky patches, and that was the reason why once he decided to put it aside.
And that was Cliffs of Dover when it came out, what, 2011, and then Blitz was 2017, right? Or somewhere
Yeah,
abouts.
yeah. We had been decision by 1C to stop their support of Cliffs of Dover happened in 2012, and then Team Fusion basically formed in around the end of 2012, 2013, and start of 2013. And we continued our work, and were hoping at some point that 1C would notice us and provide us with a access to the source code, so which would allow us to do our work a lot better. And in fact, they did notice, and we came to an arrangement. We started talking with them in 2016, and they eventually granted us access in March of 2017. And then we started work on the revision to the original game, and had that out by December of 2017.
Okay. And then 2013 is when 1C went ahead with the Great Battles series, which is a different engine altogether.
Yeah, and you'd have to talk to Jason about that. Jason, who leads the 1C development team, his Rise of Flight game system is just
That's
great,
right. Yeah,
great.
that's what that came from, right? Because I talked to Jason about a month ago or something, and that's what he was saying. So yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yeah, Rise of Flight was an excellent game on its own. I played it a lot myself and enjoyed it thoroughly. And once they looked around for another option, and they decided on this game engine as their choice to continue the IL-2 series, and they've done a tremendous job with Great Battles, and it's a really good game that provides players with immersive simulations of various battles, mostly on the Eastern Front, but now has moved on to Western Front as well.
Exactly. And now we're up to Desert Wings, and let me see if I can finally pronounce this right. Is it TOBRUK? TOBRUK? What is the proper pronunciation? Because I've been getting shit from my viewers.
I know I saw someone have to spell it out for you.
Oh, yeah, a couple times, and I still haven't got it right. So, what is the proper pronunciation of this?
Well, as an Australian and as a guy whose national troops spent a lot of time in the town in
Absolutely.
question, I'll let Peter answer that.
Tobruk.
TOBRUK. Okay. There we go, guys. I think I finally got it right. So it's TOBRUK.
Yeah. It's
TOBRUK.
the Tobruk's very close to us Australians who
Gotcha.
enjoy our military history with the rats of Tobruk.
Yep. So now we're up to Desert Wings TOBRUK, and this is a completely new add-on, basically, or what do you guys call it? Add-on, DLC, expansion. What's the proper term for this at this point for the Cliffs of Dover Blitz? Correct?
Right, it's a DLC for Blitz, so you got to own the original Blitz game, and then you basically purchase the DLC, and it becomes part of the original game. It gives you access to the new map and all the new aircraft, and many of the new aircraft that come with Tobruk are actually designed to fly and historically did fly on the channel map, and were not on the desert map. So we've included those as well.
You just called it TOBRUK 2. It's okay.
Infectious.
I don't feel bad now. All the times I've said it. So now we're up to that, and Blitz. Blitz has a ton of aircraft, and my thing is I seem to have missed the whole Blitz thing in Cliffs of Dover. You know what I mean? There was a kind of a period there where I was out of flight sims for a little bit, but I played flight sims for probably 30 years now. You know what I mean? And there was just a period where I was playing like Lomac. You know what I mean? Instead of like the IL-2 stuff. So there's a ton of aircraft in there already, but Desert Wings brings a ton more. And that's where I was confused going through my videos and trying to put it together, because I don't know. So how many aircraft are included in Desert, or what does Desert Wings bring to Cliffs of Dover Blitz?
So as you are aware, aircraft types in World War II were in a constant state of evolution.
Oh, there's so many, yes.
So your basic model of the Spitfire went through any number of variants and improvements that made it more competitive, and each side were modifying and adding things to the basic aircraft to give them that little edge in the air, which would give them advantage in combat. So in Cliffs, we like to try to replicate the as I say, large number of variants of the various types. So the game engine in Cliffs allows us to include different propeller types, include different engine types, different models of superchargers, different obviously slight changes to the fuselage or to the wings or to anything else like that. And what this provides the player with is the opportunity to experience the slight differences and changes that these aircraft went through as they were in the process of development. So we have a large number of Spitfire 5 types and 5B types. And it starts off with the 5A, which is basically using the Spitfire 1A airframe, but with the Merlin 45 engine, with a slightly different propeller, with the same armament, and so on. So, and then you evolve to the first of the Spitfire 5Bs, which went with metal ailerons, metal skin covered ailerons as opposed to fabric covered ailerons, which gave the aircraft more competitive, better response at high speeds. It added the cannon in the wings, so it went to 2 cannon and 4 machine guns instead of 8 machine guns. It went to a slightly different propeller. It went from a de Havilland propeller in the Spitfire 5A to a Rolltall type propeller in the Spitfire 5B, which had little wider blades and gave a better climb, better overall performance. So these are examples, and I'm not going to go into obviously every single model that we cover in the game, but this is the reason why we have included all these different variants, is because if you fly the plane in the game, you fly the different planes in the game, you can, once you get familiar with the types, you can tell the difference between the different models, and you can see how this improved the aircraft in this way and gave this advantage. So sometimes it's a trade-off. For example, the Spitfire 2A, which was in the original Blitz game, had 8 light machine guns. The Spitfire 2B was basically the same plane, but had the 2 20mm cannon and 4 light machine guns. This gave them a better firepower, but it was actually slower and climbed worse than the Spitfire 2A because it had the same engine. So it was because the 2B was slightly heavier with the cannon and the additional drag that's caused by the cannon protruding from the edge of the wings and that kind of thing. So sometimes it's a trade-off. They get the extra firepower, but then you lose a little bit in performance. Anyway, it's something that we wanted to offer the players. I think in the Great Battles game, they tend to focus on one particular model, and they do that really well. And as I say, our difference is we maybe don't offer quite the same number of major types, but within the individual types, we offer a lot of variants, and that way we try to carry the player through the operational lifespan of the particular aircraft, and they can see how it evolved.
So how many planes overall did you guys add in the Desert Wings over what was already in the Cliffs of Dover Blitz? Because that's where I was confused.
Yeah, not counting the tropical types, which are have air filter systems to prevent the very omnipresent dust that was raised on the non-hardened airfields in the Middle East, and which caused damage to the engines of the aircraft. The desert types have these filters which are in place to prevent the dust from getting into the engines. So not counting the tropical types, we have about 40 variants and types added to the game.
I thought it was something like that. I know it was a big number.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of planes in there. And then, like you said, that's where I was a little confused going through. I'm like, which one do I pick? I've got so many to choose from like that, single plane. But like you're saying, variants, little numbers at the end that change them a little bit, I really like the Tomahawk a lot in there, and that's one thing. And again, I'm not trying to be the comparing guy, but I really like the P-40 that's in Great Battles, and I personally felt that I had a hard time flying that plane in Great Battles, the P-40. But then I flew your Tomahawk in Desert Wings, and I've enjoyed the shit out of it, and I'm able to I feel like I'm able to fly it a little better. You know what I mean? And it's definitely been a lot of fun. I'm exploring all the different planes. I think I was in a Focke-Wulf 190 in one of the other ones in one of those first campaign missions, and I did well in that too. You know what I mean? And I'm not the best warbird pilot. You know what I mean? I think I'm a good pilot in general after all the years of experience I've had, but You
I
know.
just wanted to correct you. You mentioned the word Focke-Wulf 190, and I don't want to get our listeners confused. The Focke-Wulf 190 is not actually in the game. I think
Okay.
you must have
It
been
was a
thinking
109.
109
That's
F4
Yeah,
maybe.
I always get them too confused. So thank you for that.
that's right. Although
Yeah,
you just had access to something I didn't have access to, mate.
Yeah, no, that was my bad, guys. But yeah, I always
That's it.
it's too easy to do with the numbers in there, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah. The Focke-Wulf didn't fly actually in the Libyan Egyptian part of the desert. It did eventually see service in Tunisia, but as to whether we ever go there is another question. But at the moment, it's not in the game. We do had plan to add it in our next expansion, and but we'll have to wait till then.
yeah.
So getting back on the subject of the Tomahawk and the Kitty Hawk, which are two of the new aircraft that we added, and you mentioned you've enjoyed flying them. There is a difference between these aircraft in Cliffs of Dover and in Great Battles, and the reason probably is that the aircraft in Great Battles have been modeled based on the use of 87 octane fuel, which was the standard Soviet fuel of the time period. So therefore, their boost levels, their maximum supercharger boost levels were lower than what could be achieved on the British standard 100 octane fuel. And so therefore they have better performance at lower altitudes. And that's maybe what you're seeing. It's one of the the differences between the different theaters. The Soviets eventually went to 100 octane fuel when they started getting very large shipments from the United States in Lend-Lease fuel, and they also developed their own 100 octane type of fuel. But in the time period, I think that's covered when the P-40 is in Great Battles, I think it was using 87 octane. I think that's why you're seeing a difference.
They recently, not to talk about the other guys again, but you're all in the same family. They recently added 150, I thought, for like the Razorback and a couple of the other planes. I'm not sure they gave it to all of the planes though, but there was definitely a 150 octane fuel they just added, I thought.
Yeah, I don't know that much about the Great Battles. We don't have access to their source code or anything else,
Gotcha. Yeah.
and the rest of the development. So, but from a historical perspective, 150 octane fuel was introduced in
Later in the game, right? Yeah.
1944, mid 1944,
Yep.
and I think that's what you're seeing in the Operation Bodenplatte
Yep.
aircraft.
That's later in the timeline. Yep.
Yeah, I think you're seeing so that it became common in use in both the Royal Air Force and also in the Army Air Corps. So the United States Army Air Corps, and so therefore I think that's what you're seeing there.
So the one thing I noticed that I really found very enjoyable in Desert Wings TOBRUK. Is it? Oh, I'm doing it again. What is it? What is it, Pete?
TOBRUK.
It's TOBRUK. I'm gonna
Says
get
that
it yet,
quicker.
guys. I'm gonna get it yet. But one of the
No,
things
that's
I
pretty good.
really enjoyed in Desert Wings TOBRUK was the sheer amount of content you guys have packed in there. Like I was going through there, I'm like, there isn't that many campaigns. Holy shit, there is. I'm going down the line and I'm going, there's another one. There's another one. There's another one. How many campaigns did you guys put in there of missions?
I think you can answer this, Peter.
Yeah, sure. As far as campaigns, there are 7 campaigns that come with TOBRUK.
That's a lot.
And yeah, it is. And I know, there's people out there that are asking, do we have a dynamic campaign? Not as yet. But there is a lot of content that have been put out. And they cover desert map and also channel map as well. So Cliffs came with 2, and TOBRUK's come with 7.
That's what I
Plus-
thought, because I jumped in there and I looked at that list and I downloaded Blitz, for the first time not long before this came out. And I went and bought it for like $6 because it was such a good deal.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and I looked at that, and then after I downloaded, TOBRUK, I'm like, whoa, where'd all this come from? Then I had to think back. Was there that many that came at Blitz? 'Cause I didn't think so. Very cool
No,
stuff.
then you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, the content, and sorry if I'm getting out of line of the questions, the content available to the player is, I wouldn't say endless, but it's pretty close in the theaters, because going from, a new player can come in and they can do the training missions. I did the training missions when I first started years ago. They're great. You can have quick missions if you want to get stuck in. You can get a bit more complex with the single missions. You can go into the campaigns. We've got a full mission builder which covers both maps and other maps as well, which some people may not know. And you can create whatever you like in there.
Yeah, I noticed that. There's like just so much, and I just started bouncing all over the place playing the different campaigns. You know what I mean? And I was like, and that's the one where it was the BF 109, not the Focke-Wulf 190 and 109. I don't know if I have some kind of dyslexia or something, but those two always got me. But that was really fun.
The yin and yang of the Luftwaffe.
Right?
Yeah. And I
Anyway.
think too, I'm sorry, go.
Both great planes. I just wanted to mention something about the dynamic campaign generator. That is something, a dynamic campaign generator, that is something that we are actually working on and that we hope to develop and include in the game. That would be included as a free upgrade at some point. We are looking at that, so it's definitely something on the horizon. We do encourage people to get into the full mission builder, and we will be putting out a tutorial for using the full mission builder in approximately a month, and that I think will allow people who are neophytes who don't have the level of experience maybe to get the opportunity to play around with it. We have a tremendous number of new elements that have been added to the game to allow the experience of the campaign, and a lot of ships, a lot of new vehicles, a lot of new tanks, so that players can really show the full breadth and scope of that actual campaign.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it so far. I think my only gripe personally would be maybe the clouds, but then I saw that you guys were talking about doing something different with the clouds now, right?
Yeah, this is something we wanted to include in the actual release, but you know how schedules work, and sometimes there are deadlines that you've got to meet. And we elected to leave this for a later edition, but we are going to be adding, we have a license for the True Sky cloud system and weather system, and we're going to be adding that in sometime, hopefully earlier rather than later this fall. And we think that will really add to the immersion factor of the game. And we're also updating the ground textures. We're adding improved tessellation. We're going to be adding a number of different elements to improve the graphical quality of the land surfaces and the water and that kind of thing. And that will I think improve the visual experience of the players. We're really happy with the way that the aircraft look, the way that the cockpits look, but these other elements I think can use some upgrading, and so we're working hard to do that.
I would have to agree. That was my only other gripe, and my next question really was like I think the terrain around the area where the action is happening looks great, but kind of that on the way to the mission kind of thing in some places looked a little sparse to me at times. But everybody has that, you know what I mean? But that
Yeah.
if you're able to improve that, that's awesome.
I think what also makes a big difference is the time of day that the mission's set. Obviously, if you're doing a mission that's set in real life, you can't change that. But generally, the early morning, later evening The desert floor looks a lot different because you can see the undulations, the colours change, and so forth. So a lot of people have probably seen it more during the midday when the sun's directly above and it's taking out a lot of those shadows and undulations. But as Mike said, with the improvements that are coming, it's important for the community to know that Team Fusion is committed to continuous improvement of the game and the game engine, that we just haven't released it and walking away or anything like that. We've already put out 3 patches. There's more coming. It would have been great to have the weather engine in, but that would have delayed it further. From what I can only say, from my personally, what I've seen of that, it's a game changer, and people should be quite excited about what's coming.
That's awesome
in relation
news.
To that.
That is awesome news. And
it is stunning.
Even the cockpits are great in this too. You know what I mean? That's the other thing. Those are the things I look at as a player and a guy that likes to cover this stuff. And when I look at stuff, the first thing I really look at is how nice does the cockpit look. And you know what, man? I think you guys are goddamn close to what everybody else is doing. You know what I mean? There's a couple areas I think when you look to the side, maybe in the unimportant areas of the cockpit, but when you're looking straight ahead and you're looking at the gauges and the dials and everything, you guys done a fantastic job there, and I like that. The one thing that I've been able to do, and I just happened upon this by accident, was there's actually a couple things in there that you can click, and I thought that was awesome. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, we don't have every gauge and every switch animated and clickable, but we do have all of the main functional gauges clickable and animatable, and it gives that the player, if they want to, really have a hands-on kind of feel to the game, then it allows them to do that.
Oh, and I did it by accident too. It was funny. I hit like the flaps or something. I was just fooling around, and I was like, I had my mouse and I was trying to move around, and I was like, oh wait, this thing clicks, and I did it, and it slowed me down. I was like, whoa, had to click it back. It was actually, I think, in the Tomahawk or something. Yeah, it was like a big switch.
And for those who don't know what is clickable in each cockpit, the cockpit flashcards that came with the game show them all.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you go through those,
you can find those in your main IL-2 folder, in the manuals folder, and these are beautifully done with images from the game and labeled carefully, and Peter had a large part in the development of these, so we've got to give him a lot of credit.
Nice.
Yeah, and I will say a shout out to the manuals team. That I think there's about nearly a dozen guys who volunteered, just community members, and we worked on those for quite a long time to get to that point. And for what the community look at a 1 or 2 page for most aircraft, the twin engines and the bombers are multi-page and quite frankly new works of art in the information that they give out, is just how long it took to make each one, to make sure it was it would work, and they're also part of the continuous improvement.
I'm going to have to dig in there and check those out. Yeah, that sounds really cool. One of the other things that I think that the consensus out there is that you guys have fantastic flight models. And some people have even said they're better than some of the other things that are out there. So how is that possible? What's the difference? What's your secret sauce, guys?
Well, as I say, I don't really want to get into a comparison with Great Battles, who do a great job, and I think that their flight models are excellent. However, the game engine in Cliffs of Dover, in the Blitz original game, which comes over to Tobruk, is a complex one. It does model the performance of the aircraft very well. We have a very complex engine modeling system that allows us to exactly replicate the superchargers and the mixtures and the fuel mixture and all that kind of thing through the game. So this is something that's not perfect. It's always in a state of improvement, but we're very proud of the models that we have created, and I think they do provide the players with a real sense of flight and of using the aircraft and being able to push it to its limits and to, you know, fight with it. So we are very happy with what the work we have done. But as I say, it's a case of we're never satisfied. We're continuously improving, and so if anybody has any comment or a complaint or an issue, we're always happy to hear from them on the forums, and we can either respond or we can even look at improving things if we've overlooked something, and if something needs a change. We're always happy to hear from people.
And that's how these things are built too. You know, I had the same discussion with Jason over at 1C about their flight models and what they do, and this goes back years when I talked to Microsoft back in the day when they did Combat Flight Simulator. You know, everybody uses all the different sources that they have to deal with, but we're at a point now in time where like the guys that you could talk to that fly these things don't really remember that well because they're either 90 years old or dead. You know what I mean? So like we're at a point in time where like it's a matter of finding all that best source material, and then there's always some guy out there that's like that's not realistic. You know what I mean? Like the armchair pilots. But I have to agree. I think that everybody does a pretty good job, and this as long as the sensation of flight is there. You know what I mean? And you put in those little differences in the aircraft. This one did this better. This one did that better. I'm usually pretty happy with it, overall. But I think that's the challenge everybody has is, where do you find the source material? Aircraft that are 100 years old, other than documents.
It's actually amazing how much source material there is out there, even for the defeated sides where you think that it would have all been destroyed or damaged in the case of the Germans with all of the bombing and the destruction of their cities. But in fact, all of that source material is available in enormous quantities, and the issue in many cases is having the time to go through all of those and read with the required amount of attention. I mean, for myself, just counting the documents that I have up to the end of 1942 and not beyond, I've got 70 gigabytes worth of material.
Wow. And
so you have to go and you're looking at the documentation for the engines, so say you mentioned the Tomahawk, so you've got to find the documentation for the Allison engine, the V1710-33 that is in the Tomahawk, and you have to go through all of the details of that engine manual, noting all of the elements, how things work, etc., and that's just one part of the aircraft as a whole. Of course, you got the fuselage, the wings, the other operating systems, so it's a very complex process, and sometimes when you're faced with German aircraft or Italian aircraft, then you obviously have to deal with the translation issue, and so it's something that I enjoy doing myself. I do the flight modeling for Tobruk and Cliffs, and it's basically a labor of love. You're going through all of these documents and checking everything, and then comparing them also with the tests, and obviously you have to rely on scientifically corroborated material that's done with done by the authorities, either by the factories or by the Air Force testing bureaus, whether it be the Luftwaffe Testing Bureau or the Royal Aircraft Establishment in Britain or NACA in the United States, etc. So going through all of the various test documentation and then comparing that with what you get, and seeing how your physics engine is working in terms of that, and then you can discover whether in fact there's something that needs to be tweaked, whether something needs to be changed, etc. And whether your propeller has the right pitch, has the right blade breadth, whether any number of other elements are correct, and it's really satisfying when you get all of these elements programmed into the game, and then you fly the aircraft, and it's just about perfect. That's when you know that your physics engine and your game engine is right on, and it's very satisfying that you get to that point.
Super fun stuff. So I think my
But
only other question on items that I think that I could I wondered about was the AI was the only other thing I had kind of issue with in Desert Wings, because it seems like sometimes you get this guy that like you can handle, and then sometimes they just start doing some really crazy stuff. Is that where it's going to stay, or is there going to be any updates to the AI, or am I just terrible? Because I've seen a couple other videos with a couple other guys where they had kind of the same behavior I saw in a couple of the missions, and I was like, this is kind of, it goes from like, 0 to 9,000, the difference, you know what I mean, in the guys that I'm getting, that I'm going up against.
The AI behavior is something that is going to be part of the ongoing improvements that we hope to do in the future. It's not going to stay where it is. We plan on developing this further, assuming that we're able to continue to produce the additional modules. No, it's not perfect by any means. We think we've improved it considerably over the original Cliffs. In fact, we are quite certain that we have. Overall, the aircraft the AI aircraft are more competitive. They do fly more intelligently. They can be very dangerous if they're the higher level quality. But by no means do we plan on stopping where it is right now. And if you have issues with anything in particular, obviously we'd be happy to hear that, and look at ways that we can solve any issues or improve them.
Yeah, I just saw a massive difference, that's all, in a couple of the missions I flew. And then I was looking at a couple other guys I follow on YouTube, and they were like, they had a couple issues as well. And I was like, it wasn't just me. I know I'm not the best pilot at combat sometimes, you know what I mean? But I was flying this mission, and I like completed everything. And then I'm flying along, and then I run into this other 110, you know what I mean? And I'm like, this dude's flying like he's in a freaking P-51 or something, you know what I mean? Like, out of nowhere. And I'm like, I know there's going to be the random guy that's really good, you know what I mean? There was probably all that back then too, so I get it, but like, it was a big difference, that's kind of where I was at with it.
There can be a difference between the quality of the pilots, and again, that's up to the mission builder. If he goes overboard in terms of assigning abilities, often some mission builders will assign a level of gunnery accuracy that is probably unrealistic. I think, and then you get the aimbot kind of situation, and that is possible if the mission builder in the game sets the pilot at 100 out of 100 in terms of his accuracy level, and you can have a situation where a person will snipe you from nowhere. But if the mission builder has been realistic in how he assigns the pilot quality, I think you usually get pretty reasonable results. So I mean, I don't know about the example that you're talking about, and you were flying in a what type of?
I was either in the Tomahawk or the 109, because those are the ones I've kind of pissed around with the most. And I think I went and completed the mission and cleaned up everything, and then I ran into, I think, 2 more 110s, which were like the medium-sized bomber fighter, right? And I'd killed a bunch of 110s. And then I got up to this guy, and all of a sudden, man, like, it's almost like I got right behind him. I'm ready to shoot. And all of a sudden, he starts flying like he's a fighter. You know what I mean? Like, just crazy evasion. You know what I mean? Like he was really good. Like I was online because I suck at playing against other people. I'll be the first to admit that. You know what I mean? I was like, holy shit, is there a guy in that plane? That's kind of where I was,
Yeah.
But it didn't happen every time. So I'm not ripping on your AI. I'm just saying there's a couple of instances where I was kind of like, what's going on? And then I saw somebody else had the same thing. So I wanted to bring that up because it's almost like you had a super guy all of a sudden in this mission. You know what I mean? Because I could not hit him, and he was just evading so hardcore. You know what I mean? That I could not get a beat on him. Yeah.
Yeah, and that might have been a very good pilot. You do have to remember, though, that the BF-110 was quite a maneuverable aircraft, comparatively speaking. It was quite lightly built, so it didn't carry as much weight as some twin-engine types. It wasn't really designed as a bomber. It was actually designed as a long-range escort fighter originally. And so it was quite maneuverable, comparatively speaking. Its main weakness was that it wasn't very fast, and it was actually comparatively structurally weak, so it was relatively easy to shoot down. And so later in the war, it had real problems, and even during the Battle of Britain, it had problems with single-engine fighters. But in certain instances, if you've got a pilot and so on, then the BF-110 can be definitely a formidable opponent. It's the other question I'd have to ask is if you'd been flying your Tomahawk for quite a while and had been in quite a bit of combat, or was there a possibility that you'd taken some damage from your opponents and
Very good.
had maybe overheated your engine or anything, and that maybe you weren't running full power and therefore you would be having a little bit
You may be right about that too. I don't pay attention to engine management. I'm terrible about that. I'm that guy. I like to fly and kill things. I appreciate the
What all
realism.
matters.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. Well, I know I wasn't sputtering or anything, and I watch for the sound of my engine to kind of slow down. Then I know I screwed up. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I don't think, but you never know. You're right. There's definitely that possibility for sure. But again, I will say that every one of the missions I've flown, I've definitely enjoyed myself, and I'm not at all saying your AI is bad. I'm just saying there was a variation, and it was a big one. You know what I mean? And I think somebody else had saw it too at one point. But like you said, there's other variables that may have been at work there too. So I'll buy that.
Could have been a combination of variables, and it could also have been that the mission builder maybe assigned a little bit too much in terms of
that one guy
skill level. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got an expert.
So choosing Africa was pretty smart, since we've really lacked that environment in combat sims, and that's kind of, I can't really remember the last one that had Africa in it, to be honest. But
Well, there was, if you remember, Red Baron. The company that produced Red Baron, I'm just trying to remember the
Sierra
name.
Dynamics, yes.
Yeah, they actually were planning to release a game called Desert Fighters.
Oh, you're right about that. I forgot about that.
I was actually a beta tester in that game, and I was so disappointed when they decided not to release it, although it did have a lot of problems. I was a beta tester, so I knew that.
Well, a lot of the later Sierra Dynamics games had issues because they weren't really making sims as much as they were games anymore towards the end, That's what I remember. Yeah.
I think Red Baron 3 was a classic. It was a tremendous game. Still has one of the best campaign systems ever.
Red Baron 3D. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. And but they decided to cancel this Desert Fighters, so that was the last attempt to do this. And so we as a group at T-Fusion kind of thought, here's an area that really hasn't been explored, and maybe we want to go here. And so we did. It's in many ways it has advantages because it doesn't require the number of objects when you're creating the map, doesn't require the huge number of buildings and that sort of thing. But it's a kind of a subtle map. It has a lot of the North African desert, by the way, for people who have commented that it seems very bare in Tobruk. is actually quite a bit different than the desert you see, for example, in the DCS maps, which is in Nevada, where you have a lot of cactus, you got a lot of vegetation, a lot more variation in terms of height. The North African desert in Libya and Egypt, in the area that we're covering, is really flat. It's basically an area that was covered by the sea at one point, and is not noted for a lot of features. So we're kind of working against that and for it in the game. So it may seem quite featureless. It's essentially we're accurate in portraying that, but at the same time, we understand people want to see a little more, and we are working on improving that, and we are looking at adding variation in terms of boulder fields, in terms of other things that maybe are desert grasses, that kind of stuff. And so, but hey, what were you talking? What was I talking about first? What were you talking about first of all? I sort of went off on a tangent there.
That's a good one. I can't remember what I did 10 minutes ago half the time, dude. So
It was essentially, it was, why did we go to North Africa?
Yes, right. Why did we go to North Africa? Anyway, because it hadn't been covered, and as I say, the only other game that maybe tried to take a look at it was Desert Fighters, which was canceled. So it gave us that opportunity. It also allowed us to use a lot of the plane set from Blitz, so that we could just take some of the aircraft that were non-flyable in Blitz and make them flyable, as for example the CR-42, and generally expand the existing models and take them along their development route, as I've mentioned. Take them along the development route that they saw. So it was I think a win-win in what it offered.
So what's the chances, now that you guys have went there, what's the chances of ever going Pacific Theater? Because that's an area that we're kind of missing at this point in time.
At this point, I'm not at liberty to reveal where we're going to go next. That could once our partner makes any actual announcements. So I don't want to tease you guys or anything. I mean,
fair enough. Yep, fair enough.
I can tell you that the Pacific is basically not really likely to happen. I don't see it at this point. We're probably looking at continuing the existing plane set and moving it forwards into another environment, another time period further on. So we're basically this game goes up until June of 1942 in the desert and August of 1942 for the channel map. So we're looking at moving it forward from there on the channel map, definitely, into the rest of the summer of 42, the fall of 42, and the winter of 42. So for the channel map, and then another map, which I'm, as I say, not at liberty to specify at this point, but another map that we think would be of interest to players, and that would be, I think, something new that they haven't seen before. So that's basically as far as I can go.
Well, that's fair enough. We know there's a future. That's good to know.
Well answered.
Yeah. So, speaking of the future, I went back and I was looking at some comments online and whatnot, and in terms of what's going on with Desert Wings and whatnot. And a lot of people were saying they wish it had VR, and then I read somewhere that maybe there was talk about VR. Where are we at this point with the possibility of VR in Desert Wings? Where are we at with it? Is it going to happen? Is it later on down the line, or never?
So to summarize, we did an investigation into VR systems and Cliffs of Dover back in 2016, in 2017, and we basically established that VR will work with the game, that it's possible, and but there are a number of there's a lot of code work to be done. We have to make a number of improvements to existing aircraft cockpits. Some of the gauges and that sort of thing in the existing aircraft cockpits are 2D. These are primarily with the early models in Blitz. The later models that were created for Tobruk are all 3D, but so we'd have to go back and change those. And as I say, we have to do a lot of coding. We have to bring the frame rates up to the level that is needed to give a good 3D experience, or VR experience. And so there's quite a bit of work to be done. This is something that is a goal for the team, but at this stage, we're looking 2021. This is not something that's going to happen immediately. It's not going to happen as quickly as, for example, the True Sky weather system. That's going to be coming sooner. But VR is something that is a goal for the team and something that we would like to see developed. Again, I have to say, though, this is somewhat dependent on the success of Tobruk. If if interest in the game is not there, then it's going to be really hard to justify in rationale the rationale for moving ahead with VR. But we are encouraged by the initial response to Tobruk, and therefore it is something that I think is a realistic goal and something that we hope can happen.
That's good to hear, because I'm on the fence about VR sometimes. I love it in Great Battles. I hate it in DCS. You know what I mean? Like, I know exactly the challenges you speak of. You know what I mean? And it is really good. If you don't have the performance, you get sick almost. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where it's at. It's really cool sometimes, but at the same time, I've been enjoying Desert Wings on my 49-inch Super Ultra Wide and Track IR. You know
As
what I
you
mean?
should.
It's it's
49
it's
inch.
freaking beautiful, dude. It's like two 27s put together. It's 3840 by 1080, and it looks fucking fantastic. I love it.
Glad to hear that.
Very fun stuff for sure. So
On a positive note regarding VR, Cliffs of Dover does get very good frame rates. A lot of players can get frame rates right up there, more than sufficient to run VR. And we do tolerate, the game is, for online play with VR, the game's netcode is very good. One of our strong points is that we can have 100 people online. And so therefore, the chances that we can put together the programming and the code to allow players to enjoy VR in an online environment with a large number of other people, I think is there, and so that it's not just a situation where you can only enjoy it in single player. I think we want to be able to achieve it in multiplayer, and I think the game's code is such that I think that's a possibility for sure.
I think the only thing we're missing right now is what we had back in the 90s in the golden age, and that's force feedback. There's no good peripherals out there anymore that can do it. I think that combined with VR in a Warbird sim would be freaking amazing. As developers, have you guys heard of anything about force feedback anymore these days, or is that kind of just dead even on the development front?
You mean in terms of peripherals offered by the marketplace outside of game developers?
In general, and like, do you guys even have force feedback anymore? Is it something that's buried in there from the old days, maybe? Or I don't have force feedback, so I wouldn't know, but I sure miss it.
Yeah, well, actually, force feedback. Go ahead, Peter. You explain.
Yeah. So I've got I'm pretty lucky. I've collected some peripherals in the time. I've got a Warthog. I've got a honeycomb yoke, which is great for flying bombers, by the way. And I've got a Microsoft force feedback.
Ah,
and it works fine for me. I know some people have had issues with it.
those are like
I've
25 years old almost at this point, and some people still have them. That's awesome.
oh yeah, I mean it's one of the best joysticks ever made,
It
straight
is.
up.
I liked it a lot
Um,
back in the day.
and you know, for me personally, I've got a sort of a center column set up, which I originally did for my Warthog, but I've got a base. I sit the force feedback there, so it's between my legs, and yeah, it works great. And you know, for anyone who's particularly when you're shooting those cannons, you get the kick.
Nice. I miss that
You
so
get a lot
much.
more feel. For mine, I don't know why, they've developed they're not available in the marketplace anymore. You certainly get force feedback yokes. I think they're worth a lot of money, but you can't really fly combat in a yoke. You know, I've tried even like with the bow fighters and so forth to see what it's like, and it's nothing like the if you're using a joystick, but certainly you can in Cliffs,
I miss the CH
and it's
Force
good fun.
Effects. I had a CH Force Effects, which used the
Right.
the combat stick, and it had a giant base, and that was a lot of fun too. But man, I
Yeah.
miss that, man. It used to be super fun. I'm just amazed that these immersive technologies that we had back in the golden age just went away. And people will pay that much money for a joystick these days. Look at the stuff from like VKB and even the
Oh,
Thrustmaster stuff's not
absolutely.
cheap. So I
Um,
just don't know where all that went.
yeah, I mean, I'd certainly encourage anyone who's listening that if you see a Microsoft Force feedback stick on the market, and in Australia they're pretty cheap, you can get them for 50, $60.
Nice.
Um, you
Quiet,
know,
quiet. Don't tell them that. I'm still looking for some more.
I know, right? I'm gonna have to get one now. I've heard like I know a lot of the guys in DCS love it for the helicopters too. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
Yeah,
just
I actually own a force feedback too myself. I actually have two of them. One of them is in the temporary non-usable category because its pots need to be replaced. But just to get back to the game itself, it does allow you to program force feedback to a limited extent, not as much as we would like. And we're actually it's usable. But for example, people have commented that they would prefer to be able to modulate the effect of the guns versus the stall warning differently. And we are looking at improving our force feedback effects in the game to allow more precise modeling of all these various different elements. But it does exist in the game, and you can use force feedback joysticks if you can find one. A G940 or one of the old
Microsoft.
force feedback
Mm,
twos
mm.
or whatever else is out there. But
Yeah, Logitech had one too. I can't Force Feedback 3D or something like that. I had all of them back in the day. I had so many joysticks. I didn't know what to do with them back when I wrote about this stuff for a living. It was fun. Yeah. So I'll be the first to admit I suck at multiplayer. I just, I go online and I just get wiped out and then I just get discouraged and then I just kind of go back to playing offline. So you guys have said a bunch of times so far that you have excellent netcode. So what can you tell a guy that wants to get into multiplayer in Desert Wings, to convince them to get involved and what's really the best place to begin in that kind of scenario?
well, you can begin by going online and joining TeamSpeak um, at ATAG, for example, and asking for help. And a lot of guys there are willing to help out, and you can end up flying as a wingman to some guy, and he can provide you with a set of eyes and some experience in terms of how to fly on a line. But getting past that, we are also planning, Team Fusion is also planning as part of our promotion of the game to offer massive online events that will serve as an introduction to players like you who are intimidated by, the sometimes the multiplayer servers are really hostile places. You come on, you take off, you never see anybody, and next thing you know, you're falling in flames.
Yes,
It's it
Vulched. Yes.
it can be very frustrating. So we're going to be offering in late September, early October, a massive online event that we're going to encourage players like you who are primarily single players to join, and you would have the opportunity then to fly as part of a group with experienced players as your flight leaders who can spot the enemy, can give you advice, can help you out, cover your tail, that kind of thing. So, and then you can experience this kind of massive online combat, which is unbeatable as far as people who have experienced it in Cliffs and also in Tobruk and who really enjoy it. So it's something we want to encourage. And as I say, we will be holding a number of events, the first one coming up in the near future.
That sounds pretty awesome.
And I think, Rod, from my end, as a player before I got into Team Fusion, online is very daunting, and it's once, as Mike was saying, once you're in the world, anything can happen, and particularly if there's other players online, it's not scripted. It's an adrenaline rush, that's for sure. It does need some patience, and it does need the willingness to learn, and I think what draws people to whether it's Cliffs of Dover or Tobruk for us, and I can only speak for our sim, is the level of accomplishment people get when they start improving online. And everyone who goes online gets knocked over pretty quickly first up. That's what's going to happen. And I think if people go in with that mindset that it's not a game that you're going to learn in 5 minutes. It's not designed to be that, and it never will be that. And I think that's what brings people to it, is because it isn't. Not because it's easy, it's because it can be pretty hard. And it's for those who are seeking that realism that draws them, and the online servers that are available go from what you can say is full real, which is like a TWC or the ATAG. When ACG have their events, they're certainly there. Danger Dogs is a little bit less down, because you can have ID markers, and you can see where you are and other people are on the map. You can have external views, so that's a really good introduction into going online, and Danger Dogs. But for those who really want to test their skill and really improve, is you go on to the ones where you can't see yourself on the map, and you're flying against some pretty experienced humans. But I'd encourage everyone to have a go, and give yourself some time to learn and get better, because the sense of achievement is outstanding.
The critical thing is to try and enlist help, assistance, and talk to the guys who are on the server on TeamSpeak or onto other voice comm systems, and they are very generous, the people that fly online. There's a real sense of camaraderie, and if you can get someone to act as a mentor, it can really smooth the process and improve your perspective on the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's right, because if you're not on comms, as we say, or on TeamSpeak or in Discord or whatever, talking to people, you're in a glorified single player.
Yeah.
Because outside of being able to put in the chat bar is, that I need help is...
Yeah, it's really hard to type and fly at the same time, too. That's for sure. Yeah.
And know exactly where you are and so forth. But if you get on to any of the comms, the sense of immersion, it really ramps up. And to hear other people, to hear what they're doing, to be able to say, hey, where is everybody? To know where you are, so if you get in trouble, that is fairly critical. You get on there, but it's well worth it for anyone who hasn't done it, and you can get on TeamSpeak. Just do it.
I can't believe people are still using TeamSpeak. They've been using that for like 20 years. Like you guys mentioned TeamSpeak, I was like, I didn't know it was still around. You know what I mean? Like most of the stuff I've been like listening to, people were talking about Discord more than anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that people are still using TeamSpeak, and I didn't know it still existed. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, TeamSpeak is kind of a streamed down program. It doesn't have the all of the additional elements that something like Discord or Skype or whatever it might have, and it just is a little bit less of a load on your computer. So a lot of people like it for that reason.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess that explains why it's still around. This has been really awesome, guys. I really appreciate the time and effort that you guys put in here, and it's definitely been fun, and I think the viewers are really going to enjoy this. So, where can my viewers find Desert Wings TOBRUK?
You can find it on Steam. It's probably the simplest place to get it. The game does require Steam to run. So if you're looking for the game, that's probably the simplest place to get it. You can also buy it directly off the 1C site if you know where that is. And there are other third-party sellers that can get it. But as an introduction to the game, I would recommend going onto YouTube and doing a search for TOBRUK, and you can see, and or Team Fusion. Go to Team Fusion's Facebook site. Peter, do you have the address for that?
Oh, if you just put into Facebook Team Fusion Simulations, it'll come up there. Same in YouTube, and you'll come across there as we've got about 5,000 subscribers across both of those, and plenty of information to be had. You got the ATAG, Air Tactical Assault Group forum website. That there is an absolute wealth of information there that people can go onto if they're new. As Mike said, you can get it from Steam. The IL-2 site is IL-2 Sturmovik, which is IL-2 STURMOVIK.com, and you can go into the store and pick up the game there as well. But there's plenty of information out there for people that are either looking to find more information about Desert Wings TOBRUK, or for those who've got the game and they want to learn more. And Rod, I just want to thank you as well for your efforts in getting Desert Wing TOBRUKs out into not only your community, into the broader community as well.
Oh,
Really
anytime,
appreciate
guys.
timing.
I'm all about, anything I can do to help further the flight sim community, man. That's always been my goal for the past 3 decades that I've been covering this stuff. It's all about having fun at the end of the day and enjoying what we all enjoy, which is flight. You know what I mean? Some of us
Absolutely.
can never be a fighter pilot for various reasons, And I always thought it was cool since I was just a kid even, that like, wow, you could fly a fighter? You can be a pilot? I want to do that. When the first flight sims came out, man, I was hooked. Between that and Top Gun and some of the old World War II movies, you know what I mean? The black and white stuff. Awesome sauce, man. Doesn't get any better than that. And now it couldn't be a better time to be into flight simulations. You know what I mean? We've got what you guys have going on. We've got what the 1C has going on with Great Battles. We've got DCS out there. We've got the new Microsoft Flight Simulator on top of that. Like, I can't blow shit up, but it looks pretty. You know what I mean? So, like, it's a great time to be into simulations. And like I've said in all my videos so far, I think Desert Wings TOBRUK is an incredible value for the amount of content that you have in there. And that's one thing that I point out in all my videos when I'm doing a first impressions video of the new campaign that just came out for DCS, for their Syria map rather, that's one thing that, like, if it doesn't have content, it really doesn't impress me. You know what I mean? And when you see something that has a bunch of content, that really impresses me. And I think that's, it's value for the money. The one thing I don't think we're ever going to have again is, remember back in the golden age of flight sims when you paid $60 and you got a complete product? That day and age seems to be gone. You know what I mean? It's an ever-evolving thing. You know what I'm saying? And, like, I haven't seen a flight sim that had as much content as you guys have packed into Desert Wings in a long time. So, and the fun factor of the sheer number of planes and then the variations. Like, I've never flown a Tomahawk before, you know what I mean, in a flight sim, at least that I remember. I've flown P-40s, you know what I mean, but like, that's just fun, man. It's the ability of just doing something different, you know what I mean, and having a lot of something different to do. And I think that is the strength that you guys have, and good for you guys. You know what I mean? Really. I think that's awesome. So definitely thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. And keep me in the loop, man. And keep in touch. You know, you guys are always more than welcome to, visit the channel and come on, and we can talk about what you got going on next as soon as you have something to talk about. You know, anything to get the word out there about good stuff. And I think the viewers are really going to appreciate that for sure.
Thank you very much, Rod. I appreciate you hosting us, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your viewers about Tobruk and the Blitz.
Fun
Yeah,
stuff.
thanks, Rod. And that's an outstanding rap you just did at the end too, mate. So
It's good stuff, though. It's the truth. I didn't have to make anything up. You know what I mean? That's the key thing. I mean, that's just the honest truth. You know, you guys got some good stuff going on, and there's, like I said, it couldn't be a better time to be into flight sims.
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
It really couldn't be.
Well,
we
we are flight enthusiasts ourselves, both Peter and I, and we are involved with Team Fusion simply because we are flight enthusiasts. And when we hear someone compliment the work that we've done, it makes us happy because we want to expand that community because we enjoy flying. I've got to get back to flying some more myself after having my nose buried in the code for too long, and I'm looking forward to that.
Just to let you guys know, and you might like to hear this, a lot of different viewers even email me from time to time, you know what I mean, and keep in touch. And one guy was telling me the other day, let me find this real quick because I think it's really cool. Here it is. Team Fusion guys, on the other hand, strike as a bunch of genuine fans who really want to deliver something great. If anything, they're putting way too much work in for what they're charging. And that's from one of my viewers, Ian Christie. So Ian's going to be happy that I mentioned him. And he does a lot of DCS videos and stuff. And he's a real good guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But we were talking about some things. And, that's exactly what he said about you guys the other day when I was talking to him about I have you guys coming up as an interview. And he's really looking forward to it. So I think the good work you guys are doing is paying off and people are seeing it, which is awesome. So, again, thanks so much, guys, for taking the time out to talk to the viewers about this. And I think this is going to be a fantastic interview. And definitely look forward to talking to you guys sometime again,
Thanks, Rod.
Yep.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
Anytime.
And when you're ready to go online, let me know and I'll go with you.
Definitely. I'm going to have to because, I'm going to need some kind of guidance, man. I can't see without those labels. I'm blind as a bat. I got to figure out how to see things. But good stuff, guys. Thanks a lot.
Well, I think consider joining this next big online event that we have. I think you'll be able to fly a Tomahawk.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
And, maybe that would be your segue into maybe enjoying the online.
Well, you guys get me that information, and I'll try to be there, and I'll make a video of it, and we'll see what kind of fun we can have. That's where I'm at with it, for sure.
No worries.
Good
Right on.
stuff.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Alrighty.